quick warning before we begin. This episode contains strong language.
If I had done even 1% of all the stuff that was done to me, I would be in jail for the rest of my natural life.
This is Blair Strater. He's talking to me from the basement of his home in Illinois, USA. He doesn't want you to know exactly where he's living today, for reasons you'll understand completely once you've heard his story.
How old are you now, Blair?
I am 30, unfortunately.
Don't say that. I'm much older than 30.
We're speaking in a video call. Blair is happiest when he's looking into a screen.
I have been working with computers, taking them apart for as long as I can remember. I'm told I've been doing it since I was 3. I personally don't believe that. But
his desk is crammed with tech, drives, cables, microphones, bits of kit I can't begin to describe.
Why have you always been so drawn to computers?
I am diagnosed Asperger's, and I believe now that's just considered a type of autism. I know that the nomenclature has changed. Labels like that are far more relevant when you're in school and when you're an adult. You're not autistic, you're just an asshole. So a common joke in engineering circles is nowadays, if you are on the spectrum, you go into technology and that's your fixation. The computer doesn't act shitty to you because it misunderstood you or any number of things like that.
Today, Blair runs his own cybersecurity firm, but he's also a reformed hacker.
Like most of these stories, it starts with 4chan. On 4chan, the key feature of image boards is near total anonymity.
In the late noughties, he started hanging out with strangers on online message boards and chat servers.
There was essentially no moderation.
How old were you when you were on 4chan and using these
12
servers? You were 12. And what was it like? I mean, was it exciting?
Everything is very ephemeral. It's very throwaway. And this does lend itself to certain types of behavior. It makes certain kinds of behavior easier, and it makes investigating that behavior more difficult.
What kind of behavior?
Come on.
Tell me. Spell it out for me.
Blair is smoking weed when he talks to me. It's perfectly legal in the state of Illinois, but an interesting choice when giving an interview to the BBC.
I mean, any general activity that you would associate with, quote unquote, the hacking scene. So that would include fraud, now ransomware, attacking someone, so doing account takeovers, or just the act of breaching a website or breaching a company to do whatever to them.
What do your parents think about all of this?
Why would they know about it?
Blair's parents did find out some of what he was doing online when he was 16, and he had got into some serious trouble. It was around the time when Rickrolling was a thing. Do you remember Rickrolling? You get someone to click on a link and it unexpectedly takes them to the music video of Rick Astley singing Never Gonna Give You Up. It was funny at the time, I guess. Blair thought his school's website was ripe for the taking.
They had their marketing video as a little video player on the front page, but that would accept any YouTube video ID that you'd give it. The music video for Rick Astley's Never Gonna Give You Up, you put that on there. But when I went back to that same school after summer break had ended, what is the first question you get after summer break?
What did you do over your vacation?
Not much. Hacked your website. I'll bring you pictures tomorrow. This wound up in police evidence.
Hackers often do it for attention, for clout. But if you brag about hacking, you can get into trouble. Blair's brush with the police meant he was put on probation for a year or so. But it didn't stop him. He got deeper into it, alongside a group called Hack the Planet. They'd target internet hosting companies and cybersecurity firms.
The question anyone was going to ask is, why would you do it? And back then, the answer was always 3 words long. It was, for the LOLz. They do it because it's funny. They do it as a challenge.
Since well before there was a word for it, teenagers have been chasing the LOLz. They once made prank calls or threw eggs at cars. But Blair's generation had the whole of cyberspace to play with. The more outrageous it got, the bigger the LOLz could be. One of the people on the Hack the Planet IRC called himself Z-Kill. He and Blair struck up a kind of friendship.
Objectively speaking, yes, Z-Kill is funny. He knows how to make things funny.
Would I find it funny? Or was it a particular kind of comedy that goes down well on 4chan?
That would be a good descriptor. Basically, well-adjusted society would not find it funny, or at least not be allowed to laugh at it publicly. Dark, edgy gallows humor. So if he's saying funny shit, I'm going to build on that. He's going to build on that. That's how it works.
Z-Kill was actually a 14-year-old kid from Finland. His real name was the same one that came into cybersecurity expert Antti Kurittu's mind when he was investigating the hacker holding the psychotherapy notes of tens of thousands of Finnish people to ransom. Julius Kivimäki. Blair would soon discover that what Julius Kivimäki found funny could be absolutely terrifying, both for Blair and for his entire family.
Do you have a weapon on you? What did you do this with?
I'm Jenny Kleeman, and from BBC Radio 4 and Intrigue, this is Ransom Man. Episode 3. For the LOLz. The way Blair describes it, hacking and intimidation often go hand in hand.
People in that scene are not necessarily competitive. It's more of a look how scary I am factor. You want someone else to think that you have skills so that you can project some air of danger.
When Blair was 17 and Kivimäki was 14, they fell out over which one of them was going to publish a report of a recent hack.
I just wanted to put it on my website, and that was that. And he wanted to put it on fucking his. That's stupid, petty stuff when you really look at it. But that is what the argument was about. Yeah, I mean, you have two teenagers talking shit at each other, and both of us got thrown out of this chat.
A fight between two chronically online teenage boys exploded into the real world. It began with multiple unwanted orders of pizzas and Chinese takeaway arriving at Blair's family home. On the doorstep, the delivery driver would ask for Julius Kivimäki.
Then it began to escalate to utility shutoffs. People would call our electric company, our gas company, our internet company, and pretend to be the account owner and ask for cancellation of the account or access to the account itself. Getting random letters from random financial institutions about accounts you are not opening that may or may not be used to rack up a whole bunch of debt in your name is pretty scary. That is when it really escalated, because now you have someone who's willing to do something that's considered less a prank and more fraud and identity theft.
Taxis were sent to Blair's home. Sand was ordered. 3 tons of gravel were ordered.
My father, he had to send away just a big dump truck filled with gravel, and hookers were ordered.
So you had sex workers turning up at your house. And what would they say when they arrived?
I don't answer the door.
But your parents did.
My attitude was, don't open the door. What are they going to do? Break in? He would also sign us up for, Social Security benefits, creating an appointment with the welfare office with my name on it and his name on it. It would say spouse Julius Kivimäki.
Then came what Blair likes to call Tesla weekend.
Elon Musk once tweeted out my home address and phone number.
Years before he went on to own the site, the richest man in the world had his personal Twitter account and the account of his most profitable business, Tesla Motors, hacked and filled with the contact details of an Illinois teenager. Get a free Tesla, the post said. Call Blair's number.
The people who had taken over these accounts had posted my name, my home address, my phone number, and my Twitter handle, and said that anyone who calls that phone number or shows up at that address gets a free Tesla car. And this was back when people were unusually fanatic about these cars. One person showed up to my house for his free car. There is no free car, asshole, go away. But he wouldn't leave. He says, no, you need to open up that garage door because that's where my car is. This dude had to be hauled away by the police because he was insistent. My car is in that garage and you're going to give it to me. Calls were literally nonstop for at least those 3 solid days.
They will give you up, never gonna let you down. They will go around and desert you.
That's Julius Kivimäki's voice you can hear, left on one of dozens of voicemails sent to Blair. He saved a lot of recordings from this time.
He personally would call our home phone and serenade me on my voicemail.
You will tell a lie and hurt you.
End of message.
The campaign against Blair and his family continued for years, sometimes stopping for months before starting up again. And it got even more disturbing. They would be woken up by armed police.
The very first one happened at 2 a.m. I was in bed for this. You got the lights outside because they're there because someone was murdered.
Someone had rung up saying that you had murdered your parents.
Yeah, supposedly I had murdered my mother, and I would go on to do this dozens of times.
This kind of harassment, making hoax calls to get armed police to descend on an address, is called swatting.
This is operator 912 from the National 911 Transfer Center.
Here's someone using a text-to-speech program on a call to emergency services, pretending to be Blair.
I beat her up. Is she breathing? No. Do you have a weapon on you? What did you do this with? There's a rifle.
When you are being swatted, the police think it's real. They send 5-10 people. Now, all of these people, they are probably going to be in full-body armor, and they're going to be carrying long guns with laser sights. The reason I know this is because I've had quite a few laser sights on me. They yell police search warrant as loud as they can, and they start pointing guns at anyone that they find. They are ready to shoot and kill you.
Blair was still on probation for hacking his high school website during this time. He says that someone else sent harassing messages to the officer in charge of that investigation from an email address that looked like it belonged to Blair, including a bomb threat. It led to Blair's home being raided and him being arrested and sent to juvenile detention.
It got me a felony conviction, and I was held in remand for 3 weeks over Christmas. And a felony conviction is what I call an everlasting job stopper, in that felons don't get jobs.
Blair was being terrorised, but he's the first to admit he's no angel. I'm wondering whether he has ever swatted or doxed anyone by making their contact details and home address public.
Have you doxed people? Have you swatted people?
I myself have never swatted anyone.
Have you doxed people?
Doxing someone? Have I gone around and used publicly available sources and compiled that information together and released it publicly? Yes, I have.
When you did this doxing, what kind of people were you doxing?
It was other people who were in these circles.
So it wasn't like their families or people connected to them?
No.
When I ask Blair if he tried to get Kivimäki back, he tells me that a friend broke into Kivimäki's server.
I did 2 whole blog posts about everything that was found on that server and all the other things that he was doing. Anything that I am discussing is either shit that happened when I myself was a child and I've grown out of and I regret terribly. But I'm not going to sit here and say I never done it.
I appreciate your honesty with it.
Blair's mother, Amy, was specifically targeted.
My parents are older Gen X, and they use that same password everywhere. And once you have the email account, you get everything.
Amy's LinkedIn and Twitter account were taken over and filled with racist posts, as well as anti-Semitic insults directed at the company where she worked as a healthcare statistician. Within months, she had lost her job. Someone hacked into Amy's email account and used it to message a group of hundreds of residents of their neighbourhood. The subject line of the message was, "I will shoot up your school."
Who this really affected was my sister, because she went to that school.
How old was she?
She couldn't have been much older than 10. She's dealt with some serious shit. I'm very proud of my sister.
Blair says his mother has lost several jobs due to the online campaign against their family. She's had to change her name in order to get work. Blair, too, has struggled to keep a steady job because of the fallout from the years of harassment. They reported it all to the police. Nothing ever came of it. Kivimäki has admitted pranking Blair and his family, but always denied doing anything more serious than that. It wasn't just Julius Kivimäki who did all this to them, Blair says. Kivimäki sometimes roped in other people too.
Every so often, someone would hit me up and say, "Hey, I was one of the people that helped Julius do these things." Sometimes they would say he made me do them. He was blackmailing me. I want to make this very, very clear. I am not the person Zekiel fucked with the most.
And he's right. Kivimäki always had his sights set far beyond one suburban family in Illinois.
Kivimäki was the biggest case that we investigated in the Helsinki Police Department.
In 2013, Antti Kurittu was working as a detective for the Finnish police, and he went to Julius Kivimäki's home just outside Helsinki.
We rang their doorbell in the morning. His younger brother was home and he came to open the door. And then I could hear the banging on a mechanical keyboard, like the one that actually clicks when you type on it, much preferred by touch typists and hackers.
Kivimäki was 16 then. Antti and his team wanted to speak to him about a suspected hack.
We went in and found him in his room, tapping away on his keyboard, and just ordered him to step away from the computer. So he got slightly agitated. And our tactical mistake was that we didn't pay attention to the fact that some of the power to his room was actually delivered by an extension cord that was right next to his foot. So he used his foot to turn it off, which cut his internet connections. So at that point, we decided we'll take him into custody. Confiscated his computers, everything we could find in his room, laptops, hard drives, USB sticks. We realized that we're dealing with something much more than just an individual data breach.
And what did you find on his hard drive?
I found chat logs, copies of servers, more chat logs, thousands of credit card numbers, password lists, database dumps, everything you'd expect from an active young hacker, all in a big disorganized pile.
A lot of it came from Kivimäki's time with Hack the Planet.
These guys were professional in their technical capabilities, but motivation was obviously hobbyist. They would do these kind of big splashy things. I don't think any of them made any money out of this, and it wasn't even a statement of any sort. It was just mischief, just breaking windows, basically.
Just doing it for fun?
Yeah, for the LOLz.
And they were able to do some significant damage to legitimate companies?
One of the more nefarious things they did was that they were able to hijack the domain name MIT.edu.
The domain of MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology.
They set up what's called a defacement page. It was just like we owned you kind of a message. And then they redirected the traffic there. The other thing they did was that they set up a mail server to receive all of the emails sent to any address that ended in MIT.edu. And we could find the digital artifacts of this attack on his computer.
One of the most prestigious universities in the world, breached and humiliated by a bunch of kids. Kivimäki was under investigation for the MIT hack, but it still didn't stop him. In August 2014, days after his 17th birthday, a fake bomb threat grounded a flight carrying the CEO of Sony Online Entertainment, who was in charge of PlayStation. A hacking group calling themselves Lizard Squad claimed responsibility. Lizard Squad struck again on Christmas Day 2014 with a cyber attack that shut down Xbox and PlayStation. Kivimäki agreed to appear on Sky News as a Lizard Squad spokesperson. He spoke to Joe Tidy, who's now the BBC's cyber correspondent. Kivimäki used a fake name, but his boyish face, blonde hair, blue eyes, plump cheeks, was visible on camera for all to see.
Do you not feel guilty that you've taken so much enjoyment of gaming away from more than 100 million people over this Christmas period?
I'd be rather worried if those people didn't have anything better to do than play games on their consoles on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. I mean, I can't really say I feel bad. I might have forced a couple of kids to spend their time with their families instead of playing games.
He was quite ruthless and uncaring about getting caught.
Antti Kurittu was struck by how brazen Kivimäki could be.
He was using his own email address, which was his first name and last name. You don't usually see that.
And did Kivimäki strike you as a sophisticated hacker?
I wouldn't choose that word. He was definitely exceptional. I think his exceptionalism was that he seemed obsessed with it. It consumed his whole life. Just looking at the amount of activity on his machine. He wasn't trying to outdo himself with cleverness or math or coding. It was more about the effect. He definitely had a lot of knowledge, knew more about this stuff than I did when investigating it, that's for sure. But then again, he spent probably 20 hours a day doing it. I only spent 8 hours a day because after that they stopped paying me and I went home.
In July 2015, 2 years after Antti and his fellow officers found Kivimäki in his bedroom, Kivimäki was convicted of 50,000 data breaches, including the MIT hack, as well as money laundering and fraud. He received a 2-year suspended sentence and had to pay back over 6,000 euros obtained through his crimes. After receiving his sentence, Kivimäki updated his Twitter profile to read, "Untouchable Hacker God."
Hello. Hi.
Ever since the MIT investigation, Kivimäki's lawyer has been Peter Jari. By the time my producer Sam and I arrive in Finland, I've been exchanging emails with him for a year.
I'm very glad to finally meet you in person.
Glad to meet you too.
Peter's wearing a floral shirt with a blue checked jacket. He has a dazzling smile.
Coffee.
I'd love a coffee.
What about Sam?
We settle into chat at the boardroom table of Peter's Helsinki law firm.
I mean, what makes a Peter Jari case?
What makes a Peter case is loyalty, client loyalty and good sales.
Peter was introduced to Kivimäki through an old colleague.
And he asked that he has a family friend and he's under 18, that would you be interested to assist in this case? I said, why not? He seemed much older from his profile of behaving, and he's a very special person in that sense. He reads a lot, studies a lot, even though he didn't finish his high school, to my understanding. He absorbs a lot of information, and of course he's good with the computers.
He's clever.
He's clever, I would say. He's very clever.
And confident.
Very confident.
And even when you first met him, he had that presence and authority.
Yes, he was. It was sometimes even difficult to determine which one of us is the lawyer.
Really?
I guess you could say that when a guy who can read a 500-page book in a day.
So he was giving you legal advice?
Well, he was trying to give me legal advice.
He hacked MIT's server.
Did he hack it or a group of hackers?
He was involved in the hacking.
He was involved
of it.
in it.
Why did he do that?
He was 13, 14 years old and eager to be involved in this hacker group. What was it then called? Wizard or something
Lizard
like that.
Squad.
Lizard, not Wizard. And I think there was no bigger motivation than just to show off his ability.
It was actually Hack the Planet, not Lizard Squad. But you can see why it's all one and the same for Peter. In his eyes, Kivimäki was just messing around with these groups, trying to impress people online. No real harm intended.
He was found guilty of these hacking offences, but he wasn't jailed.
No, he wasn't jailed. He was under 18 years old.
What do you make of that as an activity? I mean, he's causing...
Well, first of all, I think the early stages of we were in these cases, there's a fact that they had informed some of the big players that they have holes in their cybersecurity, but they never reacted to anything.
You think he was exposing flaws in their security system?
I would say so.
So he was doing a kind of public good there?
I'm not saying public good or not.
Peter would represent Kivimäki again a few years later when he faced charges for the bomb threat that grounded the plane carrying the boss of PlayStation. Again, he was found guilty. Again, he avoided a prison sentence. Kivimäki has never faced any charges for what he did to Blair Strater and his family. He's always said he never did anything more serious than pulling a few pranks on them.
When did this entire campaign against you end?
It never ends. It's like having cancer. Your cancer is never cured. It goes into remission. The last time it happened would be around 2017, 2018.
And do you know why he lost interest?
I think it's a combination of him being bored, maybe him having been caught out in the Lizard Squad stuff. A lot of these, hacking groups, they are very, very much for children. And people ask me, do you hate Z-Kill? And at this point, it's, I'm not I've forgiven him. I'm not one of those people. I am so done. And god damn it, I want the guy arrested.
After Vastaamo was hacked in 2020, and tens and thousands of Finnish people had their most private thoughts held to ransom, Blair, Antti and the Finnish police had a hunch that Kivimäki was behind it. But hunches are not enough to bring a person to justice. Detectives needed hard evidence linking Kivimäki to the biggest crime Finland had ever known. They had to build a case against a man who considered himself untouchable, and they had to find him. No one had any idea where Julius Kivimäki was. The hunt was on. Ransom Man is written and presented by me, Jenny Kleeman. The producer is Sam Peach. The executive producer is Georgia Catt. The commissioner is Dan Clark, and the commissioning executive is Tracy Williams. Sound design by Sam Peach. Original music for the series was composed, performed and produced by Echo Collective. It's a BBC Studios production for BBC Radio 4.